Welcome back to the Oscar Project Podcast, the show where I discuss Oscar-nominated films year by year. I am your host, Jonathan Eacherber, and today I'm bringing you an interview with Aaron Johnson, director of the short film, The 17%, which recently won the Silver Award at the 2024 Student Academy Awards. Before I jump into the interview, please be sure to subscribe to the show in your podcast player so you can get all the newest episodes as soon as they are released. If you like the interview and want to hear more, please consider leaving a rating and review in Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Aaron Johnson is a documentary filmmaker who is dedicated to telling stories that might otherwise fly under the radar. He recently completed his studies at Chapman University's Dodge College of Film and Media Arts and joins me on the podcast to talk about his short film, The 17%, which recently won the Silver Award in the documentary category of the 2024 Student Academy Awards. Aaron, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So your film brings us into the world of Colette Divitto, a happy and hardworking young woman with Down syndrome who has started her own cookie business. Where did you first learn about Colette, and what made you decide to want to make a film about her?
Yeah, so I'll answer that question by saying my inspiration for making the film came from my personal experience where I grew up in a special education classroom. And as much as it was my own learning disability, more importantly, it was the connections that I made with my classmates and learning about their disabilities and how they engage with the world. It made me commit to telling stories, but more importantly, stories about the disability community. And coming into my thesis project for Chapman, I decided to do a film about people with disabilities who also hire other people with disabilities. And transparently, it came across as a cold email. I found Colette online as being someone who has a disability and hires other people with disabilities.
Yeah.
And I just shot her an email. I said, hey, I'm this kid from California that wants to make a film about your life. And at least to say it was one of the most thrilling and exciting experiences, but also intimidating.
Sure.
Just, the whole idea of traveling across the country to make the film, but it all worked out.
Absolutely. And you mentioned it there and that she's hiring other people. That was one of the highlights of the film for me, was not only seeing her success as an entrepreneur, but her being able to share that success with other people in similar situations. Talk a little bit about some of those other people that she hires to work in her business that also have disabilities of various types.
Yeah, I think, again, that's something that drew me to making a film about people with disabilities, is how down to earth and heartwarming they are.
Definitely.
Just because of the hardships that they went through in their personal lives. And you see that throughout the film, I feel, even within the scene where Colette and her employees open up to each other and they have this scene where they all hug. That was a normal conversation amongst me, my DP, and them. It wasn't an interview. It wasn't an interrogation. It was talking about what impacted us to be in the very moment that we are now.
Right.
And her co-workers in the film, Brooke, Chi-Chi, and Nate, along with her mom, Rosemary, but more specifically her employees, all they wanted to do was just live a independent life, but also, have a fulfilling one. And I think Colette provided them with the foundation to be stable financially, but
Right.
more importantly, be in an environment where they can prosper and they can feel seen and heard.
Absolutely. And you give the statistic early in the film that only 17% of people with some sort of neurological disability are able to find employment in the workforce. Obviously, that kind of informs the title of your film, The 17%. Why did you feel, you've already touched on it a little bit, but why do you feel it's important to shed light on this disparity within that community?
I think because of the number within itself, it being so low.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned in my speech when I was in London, so the 17% wasn't so much about the number or the statistic, but the wider population of people who are in that category. And on the polar opposite of that, it's 83%, which is an extravagant number for people without employment, and in specific those with disabilities. And by calling it the 17%, I thought it'd bring action to say this is a very low number and that there needs to be some form of change to increase the employment rates. And if I could be a small spark to the flame to help bring this to life and actually make change, I'm all about that.
Definitely. That's a worthwhile endeavor for sure. Now, I'm sure, obviously, this was a documentary. I'm sure you had lots of footage to work from, but what were some of the biggest challenges? You already said, moving, going across country and making that journey was a challenge on itself. What were some of the other challenges you had making the film?
I think I'll start off by saying for any documentarian, you go into the field and you really can't plan what's going to happen, especially with the way that I intended to make the film
Right.
was in correlation to a narrative film. Perks of Being a Wallflower is just watch Colette as she goes about her day and literally just be a fly on the wall. And the way the story was told wasn't so much a narrative of me or anyone else elaborating on the story. I really wanted you to see Colette doing Colette. Like
Right.
you wanted to see her living her life rather than telling you how she lives her life.
Right.
So the footage was just endless, right? This hours on end. And I give my utmost respect and appreciation to my editor, Wesley Cunningham, because he sat through the footage and I joined him at times. But more importantly, he'd take time out of his own personal life to really hone in on what the important parts through each interview was, and also when to cut the footage, what was necessary. And he dedicated so much time and appreciation to the project. It's just a collaboration amongst my whole team, and that's what makes the film what it is. But the hardest part was definitely narrowing down the footage and then also choosing what scenes we wanted to incorporate and then which ones, unfortunately, we had to leave out.
Right. And to that point, were there any scenes or any little tidbits that you had to leave on the cutting room floor that you kind of were really pushing for to include in the film? Just obviously couldn't justify it for length reasons, whatever the reason. Were there any other pieces that you really wanted to include that you just weren't able to?
Totally. That's one of the more bittersweet experiences, is seeing something come to life and knowing that you'd want to use it, and then asking yourself if it fits with the narrative of what you're trying to, the story you're trying to tell and accomplish. And there was a few specific moments. I think one that catches my attention the most is when in the scene where her employees are opening up, each employee was talking about their personal experience. And it was some of the most eye-opening information just about why they're with Colette, what they had to endure, and what really influenced them to be the person they are today. And it was a fair juxtaposition of them sharing information about how they got to Colette, but not sharing too much where we're steering away from Colette's cookies.
Sure.
And it was just a matter of figuring out what they were saying that was in cohesion to what we're trying to tell as a story, but also allowing them to have their own voice and speak on their own behalf. And I think we did that fairly well. And of course, with time, you can accomplish those things. But me being the whole process was just like I was a part of it the entire time. And stepping back and being able to look at it, it's hard. But
Sure.
obviously, people feel some form of way about it. And I'm just glad that people can feel something from this at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's one thing every time I interview documentary filmmakers, that's one thing they always say is it's hard for them to step back and see it because they're so connected to the subject. They're so into it all the time that it's hard to step back and see the greater picture. Now, I mentioned at the top, but I want to congratulate you on being named the silver medalist in the documentary category at the Student Academy Awards this year. What was your favorite part or a most memorable part of being at the awards and the events around the awards in London a few weeks back?
I'd say one of the highlights was meeting the other winners from across the world and learning about their upcoming, growing up in India or Japan or Germany, France, etc. And seeing how we all have this shared love for film and telling stories, yet it was such a different perspective on how their stories were told or what they were trying to accomplish.
Sure.
And it was surreal walking in the streets of London talking about growing up in different countries. I'm sure you can imagine the scenery, and that whole experience was just so fulfilling. And in a more broader scope of things, I think just having the privilege and the fortune to have an establishment like the Academy recognize our films and then to provide us with this excursion, it makes everything, again, enhanced. Like we're in a whole different field now. We just finished school and now we're off to the races. But I'd say a highlight was just being able to collaborate with like fellow creatives
Yeah.
and just live in the moment and cherish what you have. And I was so grateful for the whole experience. I don't know what else I'd change because you're part of it and you just enjoy the moments and you make the most of it. And it was definitely a highlight just to have this community of people who uplift you and support you. And it was just a shared love. So I could definitely appreciate that.
Wonderful. Now, are there any festivals or screenings or anything else where people can check out the film in the near future?
As of right now, there's nothing confirmed. As we all are in the film industry trying to get our work seen by other establishments or distribution places. But we will be hearing back in a few weeks from a few festivals. So once those come to life, we will definitely be sharing those on our social media pages. And as of right now, we're trying to continue the momentum and use the fuel to the fire and push forward with the project.
Absolutely. You got to strike while the iron's hot, as they say.
Exactly.
Now, I have a couple questions not specifically related to the film, but before I move on to those, is there anything else you want to touch on about the 17%?
Yes. The most important thing that I can share with your community and my community is how much respect and love, appreciation I have for my crew, my DP, Chris Cam, my producer, Rachel Koralnik, my editor, Wesley Cunningham, and then also even my assistant camera, Wells Goltra. It's just a collaborative effort. And then to see those pieces come to life because of them, it was a shared effort. But when it comes down to the technicality of it, people see us for our positions, but it went beyond just our roles. It was learning how to develop a friendship, learning how to establish just a relationship with the film. Like you mentioned, you're so involved in it, like taking a step back and saying, like, it is like some of our first times making a project like this, and to just work off each other. So to my crew, it's much love. And I've always told them that whenever I have the chance to share our success, it's not just about Colette or myself. It's about everyone involved, and my crew is a piece of that. So I'll leave it at that. But yes, they're amazing, and I love you guys.
Perfect. Well said. Now, this might be the hardest question I ask, but if you had to pick your top 3 films of all time, what would they be?
Yeah, that's a very tricky question. I've always loved Good Will Hunting. That was an influence of how I wanted to develop the film itself. I also am a fan of Crip Camp by Jim LeBret.
Okay.
Which is a documentary.
Yep. Oscar nominated a few years ago, I think, if I remember.
Yes, sir. I actually had a chance to talk with and meet with him before my film was shared.
Oh, that's wonderful.
That was a very, again, fulfilling moment. And then I'd also say, I'm just going to go into what made the project what it is, but even Peanut Butter Falcon, if you've ever seen that.
Okay.
It's with Shia LaBeouf.
Yep.
That movie also inspired me and influenced me to make a film because the other main character has Down syndrome and it's about their relationship together. So definitely another film that I admire.
Wonderful. And if you could invite any 3 movie characters to your next dinner party, who would they be and why?
Dead or alive?
Any character. Not the actors, the characters themselves.
The characters.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Definitely. Why am I blanking on his name? The therapist in Good Will Hunting.
I can only think it's Robin Williams. I can't think of the character's name, though. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie. But I know who you're talking about. Robin Williams' character.
Right. Robin Williams' character. I would also say... Man, I'm like not good with the character names. Wow. I'm trying to think. That's a great question. What other characters do I... Wow. I'm honestly not all too sure. That's funny. Even in Baby Driver, that's another film that I really like. I'm blanking on his name, but Baby Driver himself.
Yeah.
I don't know. Something just about like how he's quiet, but like level-headed.
Yep.
I feel like that's very much myself. Like I keep to myself, but when the time comes, I'm like ready to go.
Sure.
And then lastly, I would probably say, just Denzel Washington. If I could have him be himself, like I'd love to just like have dinner with him.
Certainly.
Talk to me. And any movie he's in any movie. If anything, if any movie, honestly.
Perfect. Well, Denzel's a good one. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what he can do in Gladiator 2 in a couple of weeks, actually. And do you have any books that you could recommend that you've read recently? Could be fiction, nonfiction, and don't have to be related to movies whatsoever.
Yeah, I love that question. I'm trying to get into reading more often. I recently read The Old Man and the Sea, which has been quite a trip, but also just kind of like replenishing. I also have been reading The Art of Living by Epictetus. I'm probably butchering that, but The Art of Living, I think I've just been in the development and growth phase. And again, my work is being recognized as such a large platform. It's still a bittersweet relationship with the project. And I'm trying to also learn more about myself and not just let my accolades speak for myself, but also let the hardest of times and the best of times all equate to who I am. So I think reading definitely helps, bring that to life and enhance that.
Definitely. We'll put some links to those so people can check them out if they've never read them before. And last thing before we wrap up, do you have any other projects that you're working on or lined up once the Academy Award push is done? And also, where can people follow you on social media to find out about upcoming screenings or festivals and other new projects?
Yes. So you can find my personal Instagram, which is at AJ Hoops, spells as it sounds. And you can also follow the 17% film on Instagram. And we're soon developing a website for the film. And as of right now, I am in thought and an intention of trying to create a longer version of the 17% that comes with time and it comes with energy and money and all the things and above. But it's something that I'm just thinking on, and there's not really any tangible action yet, but I think there's more to be told of the story, and that might be a next step of mine. And also just to, do more independent work, and as we all are, trying to push for the next thing or to use the momentum and carry on with it. So that's where I'm at.
Wonderful. We'll put a link to the social media profiles in the show notes as well. Well, Aaron, thank you so much for the time today. Really appreciated you sharing your film, sharing Colette's story, and getting to hear some of the stories behind the making of the film.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. I appreciate your time. And everyone, make sure to go follow the podcast. You're an amazing person. This is amazing. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate those words. Thank you again to my guest today, Aaron Johnson. His short film, The 17%, was a Silver Award winner at the 2024 Student Academy Awards. The Oscar Project podcast is written and produced by me, Jonathan Eacherberg, with editing assistance from Joshua Eacherberg. If you want more movie coverage, check out the Oscar Project on Substack at theoscarproject.substack.com, and be sure to come back for my next episode where I'll be speaking with Neil Fisher, author of 2 new movie trivia books. Until then, I hope to see you at the movies.